Well, I'm not even prepared, but I had to jump on here to say Happy New Year to my friends in Melbourne, Australia, especially Josh Wood and his near and dear. Happy New Year. My gosh, I didn't even think today about how it's already the new year in some places in the world. Oh my goodness. You know, I've hardly gotten used to writing 2021. And now here in a few hours, we'll start writing 2022. My gosh. Well, it is about 8 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States of America on the last day of 2021, December 31st. So I've got a few coffee facts for you this morning, and then I'll have to figure out what coffee am I going to make. So coffee, started off in North Africa and in the Arab world, and eventually made its way to Europe, where it quickly became very popular. Why? Well, one of the reasons is because, well, it's the same reason why coffee's popular everywhere at any time. It's a stimulant. It makes you feel kind of peppy and happier and, thinking more clearly. I guess if you don't drink too many cups though, right? Too much can be counterproductive. So, around the 1600s, coffee began to be popular in Europe. Up until that time, and then sometimes a little bit after that too, it had been alternately banned and approved by various religions, and also it became a political thing because just like we do today, people would gather in coffee houses. They'd gather in groups to drink coffee. But back then, when you went to a coffee house, it wasn't so much like it is now where somebody sits and does their own thing. It was more like people would get into discussion groups. In fact, some coffee houses had areas set aside for different types of discussion. But one of the things that would happen is a lot of news, or sometimes rumors, would be spread by people, and big businessmen and even politicians sometimes would go to coffee houses to learn news that they couldn't learn in a newspaper or even in their own company, their own business. Well, as you might imagine, coffee houses could become sources of sedition. In other words, people who maybe weren't happy with the government, and they would gather together and discuss this and, maybe even plan out things against the government or just spread around their opinions. And, unlike today, at least in America, in most European countries, you could not sit around and talk about whatever you wanted in public. If you were talking against the king or whoever the ruler was, you could get in serious trouble. I mean, serious trouble. There was not freedom of speech. So, it was a serious thing. So sometimes whoever was in power would close down all the coffee houses or heavily tax coffee or just all kinds of things. It's really pretty dramatic, much more so than you would think when you're sitting around drinking your morning cup. And as far as coffee in the New World, it was first brought to the Caribbean in the 1720s. Apparently, a man who wanted to start growing coffee over here brought it over on a ship. It took weeks and weeks, and he had to protect this little plant under a glass sort of case, so it would get enough, keep its moisture and be protected from the weather and be able to get light and all this. Anyhow, so he planted it in the Caribbean, and it began to grow, and, the rest of the story from there. It really spread in the New World. And at that time, in the 1700s, the Caribbean and general area around there were controlled by the French and the Spanish and the Dutch. So also they controlled a lot of sugarcane plantations. So sugar, which used to be a super expensive thing in Europe, became cheaper because of its greater availability from the Caribbean and, you know, unfortunately, slave usage too. That was one of the things that made it cheaper. Anyhow, people in Europe suddenly started to be able to sweeten their coffee, because up until then, for the most part, only the very wealthy could afford to have sweetened coffee. It was known to be a bitter kind of drink, and, well, you know how black coffee can be, and especially if it's been made by boiling it. Anyhow, so it got to a point where just about anybody could afford to buy sugar and put it in their coffee. And these days, coffee's grown in a belt around the world. If you're familiar with the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, areas below and above the equator, you know, countries like Vietnam, India, Ethiopia, Brazil, Colombia, Central America, Mexico. Think about places where, you know, when you read a package of coffee or you go into a coffee shop and it'll mention a certain coffee, you know, like it'll say Nicaraguan, you know, coffee or something like that. Well, that's because those are the areas that have climates that are best suited for growing coffee. Well, enough talk. Hello to everyone who's watching. And again, Happy New Year to Josh Wood and his wife and family and everybody living in Melbourne, Australia. I'm thinking Australia is big enough that there's probably time zones there. So it's not even New Year. I don't know, Josh, I don't know where Melbourne is in Australia. I know where Australia is. I'm not that bad off. So if you're still awake, Josh, is Melbourne one of the first places that gets New Year's, or, you know, the last, or how does that work? Golly. You know, I think about the United States, but I don't think about other countries. Let me froth some milk here, because I always love frothed oat milk. It's very rare that I don't like a cup of coffee with some frothed oat milk. So let's see here. Clean dishwasher, so all of my nice see-through cups are ready. Oh, golly, what should I make? Well, you know what? I usually have my first cup from my Pixie machine, my original line machine, because I've got to tell you, that is my favorite. So that's what I'll do this morning. Now, what kind will I have? Let's see here. Alrighty, I have all these Inspirazione Italiana. Okay, then I've got some Capriccio, some vanilla eclair, some cocoa truffle. That funny noise is the machine telling me it's ready. And I've got, Scuro, which means dark. Oh, golly. You know, I will have some Scuro. And, I've got to push the button on the frother. My gosh. There we go. Oh, so Josh says New Zealand is 2 hours ahead of us, but we're one of the first. So Melbourne, Australia is one of the first cities in Australia to get the new year, but New Zealand got it a couple hours before them. Okay, and here, of course, you know, it's just like 8 in the morning. So we've got 14 hours yet before we flip over to 2022. Well, on the East Coast of the United States, let's see. On the West Coast, they've got 17 hours before they get the new year. Oh, yep, that makes sense. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. I'm starting to see it in my mind. Okay, so, you know, isn't it wonderful that, I think it's wonderful, that I don't have to procure coffee beans somehow and roast them up and grind them up and somehow make them into a brew. I've got it all figured out for me in this capsule. And I particularly, that's one of the reasons I like Nespresso. Again, I receive no benefits from Nespresso. I don't own stock in the company or anything. I just like to share things that I think are, you know, really good. So every time I make a certain capsule, I know what I'm going to get. I know how it's going to taste. It is going to come out the way I'm expecting. I've used so many other coffee methods over the years, and, you know, now I never have roasted my own beans, but I have ground them and just used every type of method. And I've settled on really being happy with this because honestly, when I want to have a cup of coffee, I want to have a cup of coffee, you know? I don't want to have to go through all sorts of stuff, getting ready for it, and, you know. This is the most preparation that I like to go through. And, you know, for a while, I didn't even froth milk. I didn't want to have to do that. Okay, so this is Scuro. It's an espresso. Let's see, I don't even know if it's in my book. Let's see here. Nope, it must have come out after this book. I really am gonna need to, oh, you know what I did do though? Okay, I need to get a new little guide. Let me show you this, okay? You know, I'm always talking about, well, how much caffeine? So I finally printed out lists of the caffeine. Okay, so this is Scuro. Let's see here. Scuro. Okay, Scuro. 73 milligrams of caffeine. All righty. And let me see a spoon. Here's a spoon. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. That is good. Oh, it has a punch to it. I know what my second cup is going to be. I have been trying to drink up more of my Vertuo because I'm thinking I may want to just switch over to totally having the original line machine because I find that I can make just really good coffee using 1 or 2 espresso capsules and then adding, you know, water, milk, whatever. But this morning, since it's the last day of the year, I know what I'm gonna have after this. I'm gonna have a cup of Napoli, my favorite. So, oh, now, you know what? Let me quick here look up Scuro for you so I can give you the information. Let's see. Nespresso, S-C-U-R-O, Scuro. Scuro meaning dark. I do know that. I'm thinking that it's around an intensity of 6, but we'll see here. Let's see if I'm right. So roasted and balanced, intense, and okay, come on, Scuro. Oh my goodness, do you know? Oh, isn't this interesting? It says, taking our inspiration from Melbourne baristas, Melbourne, Australia. The masters of robust but perfectly balanced tastes. We chose Arabicas from Colombia and Ethiopia and then split roasted them in a very contrasting manner to create an intense roasted coffee taste that balances perfectly with milk. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness. So when they have these barista collections, they don't usually give an intensity on them. This is intense, and there are some websites that do list intensity for the barista, what did I just call them? Barista creations. So you can Google that, okay? I'm not going to take the time to do it now, but I wish everybody a happy, happy New Year. Here, we'll make this a little fancier. Add some of the froth that's left in the milk frother. Okie dokie, listen. A new year is coming. Oh, for some of us, it's already arrived. For most of the world, it's coming in the next several hours. So make good choices.